So, what were you doing in 1992? That's 30 years ago. My guest this morning, Karen Devine, was probably getting ready to report on a story of importance to the Coachella Valley at KMIR. Now, 30 years later, she is still doing that. What she loves most at KESQ. Karen, welcome and a big congratulations. 30 years.
I wish it just meant that I was 30 years old, you know?
Well, we can do that too.
Okay, thank you.
So, first of all, where are you from originally?
I'm from the Bay Area, from Saratoga, California, near Los Gatos and San Jose. So I grew up in Northern California.
And so, when did you first get that bug and you thought, you know what, I think I'd like to go into broadcasting?
Never. It was never a thing. No. I come from a family of teachers and coaches from the Bay Area. I ran track and cross country. My dad was a swimming and diving coach. You know, sports was our family's thing. And I ended up, because of all these crazy things, in Southern California at Cal State Fullerton. And I had an advisor who asked me what I wanted to do. And I was going into my junior year because I had already done 2 years at a junior college in the Bay Area where I had been running track and cross country. So I said, I don't know, I like people, I like to write. And he said, we're starting this broadcast journalism program within our radio, TV, film program. And we think, why don't we put you there? I said, okay. And that's what happened. Honestly,
I mean, just by happenstance?
Just by happenstance. And I just started going to those classes and met people that seemed to be a lot like me, loved people, loved to write, liked to ask questions. And it was radio, TV, film with an emphasis in broadcast journalism, but we did a radio section and I'm like, oh, I'm going into radio. We did the TV section. Oh, I'm going into TV. We did the film section. Oh, I'm going into film. I learned all those things. I liked it all. But what I realized was I hung in there, and then I had an internship at CNN in Hollywood and for Showbiz Today. And I just kept going where others dropped out. So I kept moving up and it's been good.
But so along the way, there was never anything as you were a child saying, I think when I grow up, I want to be ...
No, we grew up without the television on. It was always music. We could watch The Wizard of Oz once a year. My dad had football on. So I didn't even know I didn't know that was a job, being a reporter.
So then your first job in broadcasting, you got the internships, and then you at some point you say, well, I got to make a living here, so I think I need to get a job. And where did you end up?
So I was at CNN doing that job, and they brought in a new executive producer who cut the staff, and I had just been hired there, and so a bunch of us were let go. And the next move was obviously trying to get to an affiliate station. And I put out my 3/4-inch resume tapes all over the country. Big bulky mail,
Oh yeah.
And where I'd shot my own video and all of that stuff. I'd worked for a week in Walnut, which was a cable program out of Walnut, California. And so I had 2 years there where I was shooting my own stuff, editing my own stuff, reporting, interviewing, and anchoring. So that's a good boot camp for what I ended up doing. But anyway, I got a look from Palm Springs, KMIR, NBC, Palm Springs, and came down here and did the interview and got hired in 1992 as a reporter. Yeah.
That's incredible. And so can you remember that first of all, when you walk into a new place and you don't know where the restrooms are, or you don't know who the people are, and it's like, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I done? Did you have that moment?
Yeah, it was scary for me because I was at a motel on Highway 111 in Rancho Mirage, a Motel 6, because I didn't have a place to stay yet. I hadn't met anybody at the station. I didn't know where to live. And the news director had just gotten fired. So he was on his way out as I was coming in, and everything was just
chaotic.
Okay, just wait for them to tell me what I'm doing, Well, yeah, it was nerve wracking. I thought I was wearing the wrong clothes. I had borrowed them from a friend of a friend's, a friend's mother's friend said I have all of these suits. I didn't have suits, and we had to really be buttoned up back in the 90s. So I was wearing someone else's clothes. I was in a strange place, and I was staying at a Motel 6 on 111.
And life was good. If you are just joining us, we are talking to Karen Devine, who is celebrating 30 years in broadcasting. And of course, you watch her on KESQ. And Karen, that first report that you did for the desert, do you remember that?
I remember, yes, my first report, they sent me my first or second day to interview Dinah Shore. And
wow,
yeah, because it was February, and it was about the time that the golf was going to be, the Women's PGA Tour was going to be here. And they sent me out and said, go interview Dinah Shore. Who?
Oh, no, you didn't.
We didn't have Google back then. Remember, Gloria Greer, God bless her, filled me in on all these people because, again, I wasn't someone who was watching a lot of television or anything. So she was so gracious and so nice and explained what she did and explained the tournament. And I was like, oh, I told my parents I got to meet Dinah Shore, and they flipped out.
Yeah, of course. And so you're doing reporting there, and then, by happenstance again, you become the news director. Mm-hmm. How did that happen?
Well, it was crazy because in 92, when I started there was a mass exodus. The news director left, and then we weren't under contract then, and people put their resume tapes together every day. You know what I mean? Like
I've worked at places like that, yeah.
So we lost a great deal of reporters and anchors all at once. So all of a sudden, I was in 2 weeks the anchor at 11. And I just saw my first day anchoring. It's terrible, but it's
wow.
Fun to have it. It's fun to have. My hair was always this big, But anyway, yeah. Then it was we had it. They brought in John Schubeck, who was an anchor out of LA, big time guy, first guy to ever make $1 million in news, apparently. But he had fallen from grace, and of course, our owners hired him. He had a reputation of drinking and made him a lot of fun. But as news director and co-anchor, he wasn't always, ready to go or there. He showed up to anchor, but as far as news director goes, behind the scenes, we did all the work. And then he would walk in and sit down. So he had this alcohol problem. They sent him to Betty Ford, and he came out and in 2 weeks was drinking again. So they fired him and just moved me to news director because I'd been doing the work anyway.
Wow. And so when you were news director, did you have a vision of what you wanted to see the station do? And were the owners behind you in that effort?
Yes. We were a young group that was motivated and loved what we were doing. And so we thought, well, things were just happening with internet. And the live trucks, the network was allowing us to use some of their live trucks. So we had one. But they would bring satellite trucks into our parking lot for big stories when Sonny Bono died, when Frank Sinatra died. So we got to know all those people. O.J. Simpson, all of that news was big. And so we were meeting people from LA and national. So we were combining our resources and we started to do more. When I started there, we had a 5 and 6 o'clock newscast Monday through Friday. No weekends, not a morning show. That's it. Or 6 and 11. That's it. Yeah. Monday through Friday. So when I was news director, we implemented a 5 o'clock news, weekend news, and a full morning newscast. And so that meant bringing more employees, moving people around, and doing more things. I feel it was almost, I would say, the best time of my life because I felt very accomplished for what we accomplished there at that time.
I can imagine. And who did you look up to? Who was your mentor that kind of guided you and gave you advice along the way?
Well, everybody was nice who we met, say from Los Angeles, the reporters. I don't know if you know Vicky Vargas from Los Angeles. She was kind of back and forth, went to Cal State Fullerton too. She's still a reporter in LA. And she's somebody that I could talk to, that would call and say, good job. It's not, again, we were not on the internet. So they actually had to be watching from somewhere or see a tape. But, and of course, I always loved Barbara Walters if I'm looking bigger. I watched her interview but my peers, really. It was watching my peers and seeing how they were succeeding and moving on and what the next level could be and what it looked like.
What kind of stories do you like to do best?
It's changed over the years, but I like murder mysteries.
Well, you just did a piece on that.
I'm the typical 50-something who likes to come home and watch all that stuff. And it's not because it's, murder per se. I love to be the one that could help maybe find a lead or get it to the next step or help law enforcement. We need each other in these kinds of stories. And I find a great deal of, I don't know, I like meeting people who need help, and maybe I can. And that's how I look at journalism.
What don't you like about broadcasting?
I don't like the reputation that we seem to have. I don't like doing some of the stories that every day are regurgitated out of Washington, D.C. or regional news, politics, that kind of stuff. I know what's important. I understand that. But at the end of the day, I think being in local news, I think it's really important to stick to what's important to us here. Of course, we have to salt and pepper that stuff in, but I don't like now the feeling is that's who we are. Maybe regurgitating news from elsewhere. We're very objective. I wish people understood even local news. We don't have a basement we go to when we get to work and go, how are we going to make up this?
Right. I know. That's what's incredible. So how do you mentor current reporters in your shop? And, because a lot of them, it's their very first job as it was for you, so it's kind of payback, isn't it?
It is. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun because they come in wide-eyed and they can't wait, just like we were once, right? And they seem smarter. And I learned from them, to be honest with you. Yes, there are things that I can teach about the area, about why we do it a certain way at our shop, what our values are, understand, little things about always use the first name before you use the with the last name, those kinds of little things. But I really enjoy the people that are new and coming in and who want to be here. But I do learn from them, I have to tell you, because they're learning different things in school than we did.
Well, that's a good thought, but do you think that they are actually prepared when they do get out of school? It seems as though, so much importance is put on social media, and some of the things that we see on social media from some reporters, across the country, it's like, whoa, wow, I didn't know that's what journalism was about.
That's super true, and it's unfortunate. It seems to have gone this far over the line. So far over the line, needs to come back a bit. There are so many things we couldn't do, from how we wore our hair to the outfits we wore to what we could say. There's no way I could express my opinion on social media for sure. And I back then, and I don't think you should now, especially if you're a journalist. So people need to be taught that, I think, at this young age. But also we can learn that there are other ways to do things.
And so you were at KMIR for how many years?
17.
17, over half of your 30. So what made you decide, what, maybe there's a greener pasture?
Well, it wasn't like that. What happened was, it was 2009 and the economy was collapsing, and I watched corporate come in and cut staff probably 4 to 5 times in 2 years. And I knew I was the one reading the news every day. I understood that this was an issue. Well, my contract came up in 2009, and corporate flew in and took me to lunch. I'm like, uh-oh. And, it was, we need to cut your pay in half,
Really?
or we're going to say goodbye. And it's not personal. What I know now is they were setting it up to sell it. But at the time, I just didn't know what was going on. So I had friends over at KESQ, and I made a phone call and said, hey, contract's coming up. Are you guys interested? And they said yes.
And so making that transition from where you were, and because you were in charge, and then going across the street where you weren't in charge, how was that?
Very different. I was only news director for 4 years at KMIR. So there were quite a few years in between that I wasn't in charge. But yeah, I was primary anchor and had been there a long time. It was okay. It was management was excited I was there. The staff, maybe not so much, but we worked it all out within that first year. And it's been great and a good learning experience for me, since I didn't jump around from market to market. I did have a lot of different news directors. So I did learn quite a bit being at KMIR. But once I went to KESQ with a different style, different management, different way to do things, I started to learn and grow, I think even more so in my reporting.
They always say, it really only the call letters change. Whether that's good or bad, left up to interpretation. But for you coming in as the newbie, at a station, did you have to kind of do your own little soul searching of, okay, it's different. I may have to adjust to the style that I did to this new style. Did all of that happen?
Absolutely. Totally different. Yeah. I just stayed quiet for a long time. And when they asked me to do something, I said, okay. And we had coaches, and people that came in, and it was kind of nice. It was a good way to transition into a new station by having help showing me how they wanted me to be.
What about bigger markets? So many people in broadcasting, it's always the next job in a bigger city, that approach. Was that ever part of your desire?
It was in the beginning. In the early 90s, that's what I thought I was going to do. But I got married and got pregnant and started my family. And I did have an agent, and I flew out to Salt Lake City for an interview what actually happened, I went into labor the Sunday night before I was supposed to get on the plane on Monday for an interview.
Ouch. Oh my gosh.
And a doctor had given me approval to fly, but anyway, I didn't make it. So 2 weeks after the baby was born, I went, and anyway, I didn't get that job, but I was looking for a while to go. But once I was back and we bought a house, settled here, the balance of my family life and the work life that I knew seemed to work for me.
Isn't it interesting when you go on a job interview, when you leave the door, whether you've got it or not. You kind of sense something. And, maybe the truth is when you go for that other job because it's a bigger market or whatever, maybe it's not really what you wanted to do.
Yeah, that's what, in our minds, it's what we're supposed to do, right? And you're supposed to get out of the small market and go to the next level, but you can do really good work wherever you are.
And this market is so different than any other market in the country because of the people who live here and the eyeballs that are watching television. So it really, I don't know that, some of the young reporters understand that. And it's, well, I'll come here, I'll do my 2 years and I'm out. While you've been here, you've been able to garner awards. The Silver Circle Award for NATAS, is quite an accomplishment. When that happened, what was your thought?
I knew listen, I understand that I've put in the years, but I never feel worthy. I'm never quite satisfied with everything that I've done. I work really hard and I love it, but I always question, is that good enough? Could I have done more? So I'd have to say getting that award and being among other people 25 years or 20 years in the business made me feel like, okay, I belong here. No, it's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any time when you kind of think back on your career and you go, well, maybe I wish I had a do-over.
Mhm.
Do you ever think about that?
I have, but I have no regrets now. Uh, I feel like I'm the lucky one because I have a lot of friends or people that want to come back to either California or to the desert and live and work. And I'm like, oh, I'm in the desirable place. This has worked for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess there's that question of what could I have done, not I wish I would have. But I wonder. But I've done enough freelance and worked with other people that I know my skills are up to par, and that's fun. But I'm an at-home, a homebody kind of person. I like to be home in my house, reading, sitting in the sun, sitting in the jacuzzi with a glass of wine. I'm not somebody that needs to be go, go, go.
And that's important too, I think. So, talk to me about you do an awful lot with volunteerism. What draws you to some of the activities that you're involved with?
Well, just like you were asking me about mentoring people at the station, I like to do the same thing with people who are maybe coming right out of high school, who are looking to figure out what they want to do. Now that I've had two children, I understand how confusing and it can be. I mean, I remember that for myself as well. But just to open up their minds and give them an idea of what you could do. And, when you talk about television, you don't have to be the anchor or the reporter. There are so many jobs within our industry. And so when I go out and I do those kind of speaking engagements, I like to stress that there's behind the scenes and there's, 15 jobs behind the scenes that are exciting too. And it's just up to you to figure out where you're comfortable.
So, what is the girlfriend factor?
Yeah, the girlfriend factor is the one I really love because they mentor women who, they maybe out of high school didn't go to college like they wanted to because they had a child, they had a sick mother or father, they had to go to work to help support the family, but their dreams were always to go to college. The girlfriend factor will support a woman who is, applies and says, I would like to get my degree because I want to do this in my life and make more money or whatever it is. And girlfriend factor raises money to help them get their college education, and they support them while they're getting their college education. Oh, you need help with babysitting? Here's what we can do. Oh, you need help with your books? You need help with, maybe we can also find you a part-time job over here that'll work around your college schedule. So the girlfriend factor really works with the way I think. Let's help somebody within our own community better themselves.
And so, as you look back on 30 years, I mean, are there portions of your career that pop out and you remember vividly, and then there are others that you go, I wish I could remember that a little bit better.
Well, you know this because you're in the same boat as me, But the good thing is I still work with a couple of people that I worked with at KMIR in the 90s. I mean, from the very beginning. Wow. So I can say, remember, what was his name? And then my friend, Rich Tarpening, who was assignment manager and producer there at KMIR for years, will say, oh yeah, I remember. Here's where he is now, or we'll find him on Facebook and all that. I have such fond memories of so many things. And to me, laughter in a newsroom sticks with me the most. I mean, how lucky are we to be in a newsroom? I was just talking to a new employee the other day who turned and looked at me and said, I don't think I can ever go back to an office because this is politically incorrect in here. In a bad way. We have to discuss these things, right? Where else is a safe place to talk out some of these things that we need to talk about on the news?
Yeah. And you're so right, though, about, being in a newsroom and realizing, what, I don't think I could go to a nine to five and sit behind a desk and do that. And because every day is so different.
Yes, every day is different. challenging. We have deadlines, of course, that we're used to hitting certain deadlines, but of course, breaking news is going to change all that. Special reports are going to change all that. Yeah, I don't know. I think I was born to be a little bit on the edge.
Without going over it. So how did you cope during COVID and getting through that? I'm always thinking that, we really don't know what the end date is for that, but we don't know what the end result is going to be either. And so I'm wondering from your perspective, how you got through it, because of every day reporting on it takes a toll.
It felt tough. It's almost like not exactly the same, I understand, but 9/11 was a thing where we had to go to work and report on it. And it's on every television all day long. And I would get home and it would still be on. And I couldn't feel it till later. And then it affected me later. COVID, it's so ever changing daily with whatever the mandate is or the new rule or the mask every single day. And with the amount of people as confused and frustrated as we are, because we're human beings, writing in or calling or saying this is dumb, and I'm saying it's the governor. I'm just telling you what they're saying today out of Sacramento. It was hard. It is hard. It's still hard, but we're all going through it together. And again, I had a conversation in the newsroom saying we will never forget each other because we went through COVID together. It's not just, we went through COVID together. Some people got sick, others didn't. It was pivoting and adjusting and conversations and trying to figure it out. And fear. There's been so much fear that we've had to deal with. I have elderly parents that live here. So I'm their contact. My mom did pass in November, not of COVID, but it was a scary time. I was the one seeing them. I didn't want to get sick. I was still going to work. But my company did a good job of having barely anyone there. And we, did all the protocols.
It has been difficult. And we read a lot now of so many people who have been in the business for even more than 30 years and who are now deciding, and even younger people, which is really strange, younger people saying, you know what? I don't think I want to do this anymore. And so has that ever crossed your mind of saying, okay, well, I've done it, I've had fun, and maybe there's something else to do?
It's been the opposite effect for me. I understand it's been 30 years and maybe aren't I tired? No, it's been the opposite because now I have time. My sons are doing their own thing. I have a little more time in the day to maybe start a project or a story and really lay it out and do a better job at it. I like how it is now for me. I understand people saying that's it. There's other things I want to do. But for me, I'm in that transitional period where my kids have left and I still am working, thank goodness. And I feel good about it.
So you're not going to hang up the camera or the microphone or anything anytime soon?
No, nope.
How great! I mean, how great though, because there are very few people that get to do exactly what they want to do as a career, and to do it as long as 30 years, 40 years, and beyond.
I'm so grateful to the station, the management, and the company. The owners they're from Missouri. They come in. Their whole take is we want people that have been here. That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. So is there going to be a big special to saluting your 30 years?
I don't know. I know that I'll tell you this. I've had to go through some beta tapes. People don't know what they are. I can show you one.
How about VHS?
Yes.
How about Super 8?
Yes. All three of those have been in my hands this week. Very dusty. And I had to take some of that stuff to the station. So I don't know.
Well, I hope that they do, because you've got a wonderful story, and I think it can be encouraging to those who are thinking about a career in broadcasting. And, you've been there, you've lived it, and you continue to do it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It has been such a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate you asking me to do the interview.
Well, it's funny because I remember we were at the Broken Glass Awards and you were on I don't know if it was red carpet, green carpet, I don't know, but I was working at NBC, Palm Springs, and I said, I want to do an interview with you. And you said, oh, you'll never air this.
And you said, look we aired this.
I was so happy when that happened. Thank you so much. What a pleasure this has been.
Thank you. Keep in touch.